So it was that my cameraman Lincoln and I ventured out to Trinity Bellwoods Park the other day to document the growing illegal eyesore that is the tent city encampment, as well as the playground that is apparently being overrun by drug users. We wanted to contrast this scenario with all those goofy social distancing circles that law-abiding citizens dare not disrespect under penalty of heavy fine. Alas, we never got to finish our report. That's because we were violently shut down. Now I'm going to throw to a clip. It is me standing in front of a particularly gruesome looking tent at Trinity Bellwoods. I was merely filming the stand-up to my report. Keep in mind, it was never my intention to engage with anyone at the encampment, but an illegal squatter inexplicably took umbrage to my very presence in this public park, and here's what unfolded. This is really rich. There are people here breaking the Trespass Act.
Please move. I don't like myself being filmed. You don't have the right to actually smash that camera.
Hey,
right now.
I wouldn't do that.
I have the right to smash that.
Hey, don't do that.
By law, I have the right to smash that.
You have the right to smash that camera by law?
Yeah, by law, you know I have to smash that camera.
What law are you quoting? Yes, please, sir.
Get over here.
Welcome to John Tory's Toronto, folks. My beloved hometown is a pretty sad sight these days, wouldn't you say? Parkland has been surrendered to people who are clearly unhinged, some of whom are violent, some of whom harbor vicious animals. And while Mayor John Tory says this is unacceptable, well, Mayor, I have to say actions speak louder than words. In other words, how about doing something about this odious situation rather than just fretting about it? In any event, here's what you had to say. Hey Now writes, I live in the Bay Area, California. San Francisco is the worst. Tents in parks and sidewalks and under overpasses. And the law is that they can't get arrested for peeing or pooing in the streets. There are places where they're allowing them to use heroin and give them new needles, and there are nurses there to help them, all taxpayer funded. Well, you know, hey now, it's tragic what has happened to the once beautiful city of San Francisco. I first visited this city in 1986, and I got to tell you, back then there was just a smattering of homeless people. Now there are entire homeless communities, much like we see in other Democrat-controlled cities. How soon will it be before Hogtown resembles the city by the bay, thanks to a lack of political leadership? Brandon Fong writes, this is so incredibly sad. I used to live in Toronto for a long time. I loved going to Trinity Bellwoods and shopping on Queen Street West. I find it absolutely disgusting that residents and journalists are being intimidated by people that should not be living at the park. It's also sad that the mayor doesn't give a single F about what's going on. This is just going to get worse. You are correct, Brandon. The situation in Trinity Bellwoods is the end result when governments refuse to govern and law enforcement refuses to uphold the law. And the end result is that law-abiding citizens must now endure the law of the jungle. Barry Cole writes, I hope David pressed charges. I would avoid the situation entirely or defend myself fully if this was my stroll through the park. Yes, Barry, charges were indeed levied against the dog owner and his buddy. He's the guy who later swatted my cell phone out of my hands. For the record, Dean Edsey, 40, is charged with assault with a weapon, assault causing bodily harm, and mischief. Mark, a.k.a. Andre Durant, 61, is charged with assault. Andre has already been released. He is residing at the park again. And get this, the female mastiff is walking around the park unleashed and unmuzzled. So welcome to the Toronto version of whack-a-mole. Lake Nipissing writes, by law, I have the right to smash that camera. Since you are so worried about the law, by law, you don't have the right to be living in a public park in a tent or have unrestrained vicious dogs attacking taxpayers in a public park. Well, you are correct, Lake Nipissing. So the question arises, why is the law not being upheld? I can tell you one thing with certainty. If the late, great Rob Ford were still mayor, this violent nonsense would never be tolerated. Sad to see how much things have changed in Toronto in just 6 years. Alas, not everyone was supportive or sympathetic, however, folks. Obsolete Professor writes, you're in his house. He has the right to privacy. No and no, Professor. That's public land, and he would have enjoyed his privacy, not that he is entitled to any, as he is a squatter, had he simply ignored us. He engaged us, not the other way around. Mr. Aussie Gaming writes, he didn't sick his dog. The dog thought you were attacking him, and they were protecting him as they see him as the pack leader. No, you're wrong, Mr. Aussie Gaming. First, there's some footage of the assailant, Dean Edsey, actually calling his dogs out of the tent. Secondly, the dogs are unleashed. Third, the large dog that did most of the damage, Grizzly, was already on, if you can believe this, a dangerous dogs list. Part of the requirements in owning a dangerous dog is that it must be leashed and muzzled at all times. This degenerate knew exactly what he was doing, which was to weaponize his dogs against me. But thanks for your concern, nevertheless. In any event, folks, if you feel as angry as I do about the lawlessness in Toronto's parks, please visit our petition, TakeTorontoBack.com, and I shall personally deliver this to the mayor's office in the weeks ahead. Also, a huge shout out to all of you who sent your get well soon sentiments to me. Your kindness and compassion is greatly appreciated. Hey folks, are you fed up with tent cities taking over parkland? Then please sign our petition, TakeTorontoBack.com. Thank you.